Hey, welcome in, welcome back everybody. It is Laura. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, please feel free to subscribe. What we're going to do today is we're going to dig deep into the astrological chart that you're seeing right there up on the screen. And we do have the sun in Cancer today in a square to Chiron in Aries. We see the sun there sitting kind of on the cusp of the 11th and the 12th house. It's at 27 degrees 06. We have Chiron sitting well in the 9th house, and this is a pretty tense energy. When we think of Chiron, there is a core identity wound here, and the sun is our ego identity, and so there's this very tense energy playing out, I feel, for many within the masculine collective. I know the feminine's probably feeling it, especially with the recent Mercury retrograde, and we see Mercury sitting there well into the 12th house. And we see the ascendant sitting in Leo right now. And so there's a lot of ego battles. Really, this is what it's feeling like. There's ego battles. There's this very strong presence, I feel, linked to abuse of power and codependency connected to past lifetimes. I feel like the breakdown or the masks falling connected to narcissistic power and control dynamics. And so there's a lesson here today that I feel is about independence, right? We do need to learn independence without completely isolating ourselves. But with Mars in Virgo, there is this, I feel, out of control, isolating energy. I feel almost like this underlying abandonment when looking at this chart. But there's also this illumination, right? Because the sun represents illumination. And with the sun in Cancer in a square to Chiron and Aries, both of these energies are cardinal placements. There is a very triggering core theme around home and emotional safety today. Definitely connected to maternal or feminine wounding or mother wounding. And I do feel this is where a lot of the masculines get triggered with that vulnerability. And so there is this wounded masculine archetype, very prominently raw in these energies. And maybe there's this this repression connected to assertion. I do feel an initiation or an initiate. There is this shame or this wounded ego being initiated. And because this is happening at 27 degrees, and both of these signs are kind of at the end of the zodiac deacons, like the final deacon of that sign, there is this suggesting energy connected to completion and karmic culmination today over the weekend. And so this square energy, it creates this tension, right? And because the sun is in the 11th house, there could be tension around security and nurturance within a social group, within a community of sorts. And this could be connected to a false foundation that the masculine is connected to, or where they have kind of played into codependencies within a social group or a familial situation. And there is this need for assertion is really what this is feeling like. There is a need for assertion and healing through action. That's what the Chiron in Aries is asking us to do. And so there's a couple of tarot archetypes associated with this transit today, and one of them being the Ace of Wands, connected to that Aries energy, and then the Lover's energy, which I feel does connect with the Gemini Cancer. And so there is this spark, right? There's this spark or this divine ignition with today's transit, but we do have to still transmute the fear of a choice. There's a choice here. This is a choice, I feel, between alignment and temptation, between choosing wholeness or projection. And I talked about projection. I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about it over on my personal social media platform. But we're at a major crossroads energy. And we are on a healing path, right? And so this crossroads is really showing us, I feel, where we keep reacting out of the wounds rather than responding from the soul. And so there's this intensity being added, I want to say, to these energies. If you look up on the screen, we do have the sun in an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, which is retrograde. And Chiron is also in a square to Pluto, which is adding intensity to this square aspect between the sun and Chiron. And so there is this energy building in the background is what it feels like with these two outer planets and their aspects, which is really kind of stirring deep soul transformation. And so this transformation is kind of exposing the shadow. And I did do an impromptu late night twin flame reading a couple of nights ago, and that's what it felt like. I felt drawn to pull cards because of this exposure energy, and there is this ego death. It feels like a massive collective ego death. And so we've got this T-square energy kind of playing out, this very dynamic friction, and this really is an energetic pressure point of karmic healing, but it will require a choice. And so with the sun opposing Pluto, there's this opposition between Cancer and Aquarius. Because of the late degree Cancer and the early degree Aquarius, it's not a complete opposition, but there's this tension I feel between the emotional body, which represents Cancer, and this deep subconscious shadow that Pluto and Aquarius is kind of excavating in these energies, right? And so this Cancer energy wants this security, wants this nurturing, wants this comforting, wants this belonging within a family or social dynamic. And I don't mean family per se, because family is more so connected to the fourth house, but Cancer naturally rules the fourth house. But I feel there's a false sense of security here, or an over-attachment to a group of friends that is considered family. And this is blocking somebody's collective evolution and personal sovereignty is what this is feeling like. And so there's like a ripping away of illusion. So I don't know if there is a prominent Cancer energy trying to control a dynamic within an illusion, because there's a lack of truth, and this attachment is kind of overriding this truth. But there's this ego versus soul energy playing out with this opposition, and the heart versus power, right? And so there's a very revealing illusion. A revealing illusion is what this feels like, especially connected to obsessive emotional attachments. And there's a clinging here. I feel there is a clinging here, a masculine clinging to an outdated version of self that is connected to another, that is connected to a group. And there is going to be like a power dynamic or a power struggle in love, especially if there's a masculine playing into emotional manipulation, or is lacking that honest connection within a group of friends or within a one-on-one partnership. And there is this energy of projection of wounding. That is what this is feeling like, projection of wounding onto others to avoid this deep inner work. And so there is this death and chariot energy at play, because Pluto is connected to Scorpio energy and death energy. And I feel the chariot connected to the Cancer energy. So there is this transformation versus willpower dynamic playing out today. And I do feel this is driving a masculine towards some truth, is what this feels like. A masculine that's probably resisted this surrender that's necessary for their rebirth. And with Chiron in that square to Pluto, although it's a wider square, a wider orb, this is like a long-term influence. And this is like a slow burning fire underneath everything else that is kind of happening. And so there is a deep excavation of a collective wound, because we do have a whole collective of Chiron and Aries out there. And this is connected to power. This is connected to trauma. This is connected to individuality. So there is this underlying collective wound, I feel, that is saying, I have to be myself. I have to be myself, even if it hurts, even if it hurts others. And so there's this questioning too of like, who am I really? Who am I underneath all of the masks that I've worn? And who am I when I strip back all of the expectations of the external world around me? Who am I? And so I do feel there's a deep activation this weekend with a wound connected to betrayal. And betrayal can lead to self-abandonment and self-rejection. And so there's also this fear of not being enough or being too much. And in context of twin flame, I feel there is a deep-seated past life trauma here connected to a third-party karmic betrayal. And so there's going to be either an energetic confrontation or a physical confrontation or like a verbal confrontation if there is like still this emotional codependency within a soul contract here, because there's this distorted power and control dynamic is kind of what I'm seeing here. And so there's been so much resistance to this evolution, so much resistance to this surrender. And if the true divine masculine feminine essence is to rise, we have to go beyond that ego identity, which is the Sun and Cancer energy right now playing out today. And so there is this like karmic fire triangle or trinity of energy between the Sun, Chiron, and Pluto is how I'm seeing this. And there's like, what I want to say is this alchemical crucifixion, where the ego wounds need to be brought to the surface in order to die away so we can birth the next evolution of this journey. And so there are major soul contracts up for review this weekend. And these aspects are going to be painful to work through. 11:11 on the clock as I looked up. And there are going to be initiations, right? The pain initiates us. And so be ready to deal with sudden emotional triggers and confrontations. I am definitely struggling as a single mother with a teenage daughter, and she's a Leo rising. And we've been in a lot of ego confrontations lately because she wants to rule the roost, and I say she's still under my roof. And so it's difficult. I've never raised a teenager before. I've got to do this twice over, but I definitely feel this very heavy confrontational energy with her lately as we work through these very intense energies. And so there's going to be a shift, right? There's going to be a shift. There could be too in this confrontational energy, the runner twin returning, the one who ghosted, getting reactivated with all of this pain, the one that kind of avoided the work. Usually it's connected to the masculine, although we can both play the runner chaser roles at certain parts within the connection. And I have noticed a lot of heightened dreams connected to past life memories, or even like the energies of the betrayal or the rejection. And this is going to lead to sudden downloads. And so we are at a turning point, but there's like going to be a lot of setbacks is what it feels like. So we can really be shown where we gave our power away, where control was used as a mask for emotional safety. And I feel that the divine masculine too is being shown where he has been maybe silenced or punished for his truth. And I feel for the divine feminine where she hid her power to preserve this connection, right? And so I think both of the counterparts this weekend, both the masculine and feminine collective, are in this deep shadow work. We're working through core fears. We are working through all of these issues of where we've lacked our truth, where we've lacked our voice. And I do feel there's a major cleansing in these energies. And so when we release all of the fear, when we release all of the control and the illusions, then we can ground in that radical truth and then begin the pathway to that divine alignment. And so there's like a lot of activations, I feel, with abandonment wounds, whether they are emotional abandonment wounds or physically being abandoned, and the rejection of the nurturing energy from the feminine. I feel that's being activated for the masculine, where they have rejected the nurturing energy of the feminine, or even where maybe you've rejected your own self-nurturance, divine feminine. And there's this fear of leadership being worked through, especially where there's been a lack of independence or over independence, and this emotional manipulation or martyrdom theme is kind of still there being worked through. And so we're kind of working through the soul truth versus the egoic defensive truth, which isn't really truth. It's like the defense mechanism. And so there's a lot of releasing. I feel the need to mother other people. I feel the divine feminine is deep in these emotional triggers. I know I've been deep in a lot of triggers lately, maybe not feeling safe, not feeling supported, or, you know, just recognizing the old coping mechanisms of where maybe you overgive or you pull away. And so there is a need to kind of just stand in that emotional trigger to really understand the power that you hold after you work through that, right? So really retreat into that inner world to understand that trigger, and really understand any fear-based reactions out of these triggers, and to recognize that we too have a choice, right? We do have a choice with that Lover's card there. And so when we choose something that favors our soul truth and releasing the old emotional patterns, that is a choice, right? So really practice emotional boundaries this weekend, Divine Feminine. And we can put those boundaries in place with love. The boundaries don't have to be loud, although I feel with this Mercury retrograde, there's going to be a lot of loud, just loud energy. It just feels loud. And take the time to journal. Where are you still seeking something outside of yourself? Because I felt this recalibration within the solar plexus and the heart chakra. So work on clearing meditations with those two chakras will probably be really beneficial. And I do feel there's a lot of wounding around leadership for the Divine Masculine Collective, especially where there's been a lack of emotional vulnerability or resistance to taking initiative, to actually doing the shadow work and working through fears of rejection and shame from the past connected to past betrayals. And so until they fully step into empowerment, they're not going to be able to take action. And this is due to, I feel, overwhelming fear. And they have to be able to make a conscious choice. And it is a conscious choice to face these emotional wounds, because there is this very strong sense of inner duality connected to the Divine Masculine Collective this weekend, where they need to understand that giving emotional safety and creating emotional safety is where their strength is going to lie, but they're struggling with their inner weaknesses is what it feels like. And they've got to get to this place of accepting this emotional truth. And that is going to require them to kind of break the silence. And so they are encouraged to take that step forward, even if it's just like an internal step towards doing the work. But there's this fire in motion, I feel, forcing the processing of the wound or the burning up of the karma. There's a lot of mirroring work for the Divine Masculine this weekend, and they're going to have to forgive themselves. Because I do feel when they abandon the truth of their heart, of this connection, they still have to forgive themselves, because they're at a pivot point. Are they going to choose the past, or are they going to choose the soul? And so there's a lot of discomforting energy, but this discomforting energy is here to illuminate the way forward, so we can anchor in this new timeline, this new cycle, without the residue of the old flamings, the old flame, or the old karmic flame residue. So that's kind of what I got looking at this astrology. So if you would like to go further with learning a little bit more about your birth chart, I do have a free guide. If you are interested in a free guide just to learn a little bit about the basics of your birth chart, comment free guide down below. I will send you the link to download it. I also have I've also written a 22-page twin flame ebook. If you're curious to learn a little bit more about the twin flame journey, the stages, the phases, how to kind of work through the energies like a pro, because it really is more than just romance. It is mission work. It is a very heavy role that we have accepted as twin flames. So if you're curious to learn a little bit more about twin flames from my perspective, then comment twin flame book down below. But we are going to dig a little bit deeper in with the cards. We'll dig in with some oracle messages and some tarot messages, and we'll see what the cards have to say connected to these weekend energies. So stick around, and I'll be right back. The message definitely is coming through pretty loud and clear, and this definitely coincides with all of the astrological channelings that I just shared with you. And so the first card out, we do have Truth Be Told. I just feel this need to ask you, where are you being dishonest with yourself or others, or maybe somebody's being dishonest with you? But we do see the owl, and so that does represent intuition. It represents this connection I feel to like this high priestess energy. There's been a block on the heart. There's this energy, I think, of seeing through somebody and the mask, right? And so this is a direct connection to the Sun Pluto opposition. There is this cosmic spotlight, and it's shining directly on what's been hidden. And so there is exposure. I've been feeling it building for days. There are secrets. There are suppressed emotions. There is emotional manipulation here. There is a false role or a false identity. There's a mask. There's possibly even internal deceit. And I do feel this energy is demanding radical honesty. So this Sun in Cancer energy, it wants that emotional comfort. And with the square to Chiron and the opposition to Pluto, you can't heal what you're not willing to face. We have to feel it to heal it. We have to face it in order to really embark upon the healing journey. And so there is an illusion here breaking apart. The truth must be spoken. That is what I'm feeling very loudly. There is a mask here that I do feel quite possibly a masculine has been wearing, connected to some type of survival dynamic, survival pattern. And this is being burned away. There is a connection here that I feel can no longer survive in the shadow or some type of secrecy. This is pretty loud. There's been something that's been hidden on the heart. I don't know if there's like a really deep, I feel like candle gazing energy, or like gazing into somebody's eyes and poof, an activation, seeing right through somebody. And there's this exposure. I just can't get over this energy of exposure. And this exposure of this hidden truth, I feel, is going to be leading to an emotional power struggle this weekend, where this emotional dishonesty has led to, I feel, a lot of wounding, a lot of inner wounding, and a lot of projection, a lot of wounding where it's been projected onto another person. So there is a very heavy karmic burden of past deceit here. And I do feel self-abandonment. This reading is really not what I expected, but it's really not shocking at the same time. And so fork in the road, there's that decision point, right? There's that the need to make a conscious decision. It's a 13 card, so there is an ending here. There is something here dying away. And so we have reached a moment on this journey of truth and evolution within relationships is what I'm feeling. And we do see leadership energy there as well. So this is kind of like the lover's archetype energy that I channeled, and it's putting it into motion where collectively we are at a soul choice moment. And so there is this tension, I feel, because we are all being called into not only soul alchemy, but soul authenticity. And there's this emotional safety, or the illusion of this emotional safety, I feel, holding a lot of people in the collective back from choosing their truth. And this energy is very demanding, right? Squares are very demanding energy. And so we can continue to repeat all of these karmic loops. We absolutely can if we choose to, right? That's a choice. Or we can step into the unknown with our truth, right? And so this, I feel, is maybe where the divine feminine is going to feel called to choose herself, like fully choose herself for the very first time, where the divine masculine is probably having this realization that he can't stay in the state of avoidance or silence any longer. And so some of us this weekend may reach that union through deep surrender, and others on the path are going to choose to stay in that physical separation And there will be a realignment connected to this awakening path if that's the choice. So I do feel there is a lot of unresolved pain from these patterns. And we do have to choose to awaken. We have to choose to see the patterns and face them and face what no longer works. And I do feel like a very forceful energy. I really do. And I just feel this is connected to like a larger collective purge as well of all of these outdated relationship templates. And then the loyal heart. This card has come out quite a bit in the readings in the last several weeks. And so I just feel the message today is it is really time to have that heartfelt conversation. It's time to go towards heartfelt commitments. There is this energy too of trusting in divine timing. There is an attachment here that needs to be released, connected to an outdated, misplaced loyalty. And this is definitely connected to the Cancerian theme of loyalty, family, and safety. But there's a very difficult challenge here. I think somebody is being challenged to discern between what love is and what codependency is, because I do see it very loud in the collective. There is a lot of people calling things love or energies or connections love when it's really based in codependencies. And where you may be being loyal to a connection where you're basically just feeding the wound and keep re-experiencing the wound in this misplaced loyalty within a connection, because this is also an energy I feel urging the divine feminine to honor the heart truth, to honor the letting go of what's no longer aligned, even if that means releasing somebody that you thought was your counterpart. And the divine masculine collective is being called to rise into soul devotion, right? To drop the ego, to let the false ego or to shed the false loyalties to these even just ego identity structures away, or to release a trauma bonded relationship, or to release that societal expectation. And so I feel a very prominent Sun in Cancer energy that is emotionally devoted and loyal to some type of trauma bond is what it's feeling like. And there's a stripping away of a false allegiance here. And I need to recognize where I feel somebody has been loyal to this pain over this truth. And so the bottom of the deck is kind of clarifying that with the community, because it was very loud, the false sense of a community with the sun sitting in the 11th house. And so there is this collective identity around this community, which has hindered somebody's truth or has hindered an authentic embodiment because of a false connection that I feel is kind of enmeshed in a social community here. And so there's been a hiding in order to be accepted by others, like a hiding in a false connection to be accepted by others. And somebody here might have had to play a role within a family structure or social structure in order to avoid rejection, is what this is feeling like. And somebody here I feel is really stuffed down and has not been speaking their truth out of fear of being alone or even misunderstood. And so the message is pretty loud. What I just heard was transform or stay trapped, because somebody is trapped here, I feel, but we have to be willing to free ourselves from any trappings. So this is about soul tribe realignment and radical individuation. So there's tension here. There's tension, there's strength, like Leo energy coming through between belonging and authenticity. And so there is this feeling of being outcast, I feel. You got to be outcast in order to reclaim back your power. And it is about being real. And so I do feel some type of truth is being revealed. I really do feel that. And this fork in the road is connected to a karmic decision. And I feel this is really in question, this energy in question of, are you going to stay loyal to the old self or to the awakening of the soul, like the true self? Because true community and true soul family will never require you to compromise your authenticity, right? So right in alignment with that cosmic cleansing that came through in yesterday's message. There's like a karmic unraveling here. We have to make room for this sacred union, because true sacred union within a partnership needs to be built on transparency, on wholeness, and I want to say alignment. So this particular tarot spread, I do feel, is a fated turning point. I do feel particularly for the divine masculine, but this is also what I want to say deeply impacting the feminine through a mirrored healing, like a mirrored release. So I'm going to break it down, but let's talk about the top row, because there is this haunting energy, a haunting of what was built on an illusion, is what this feels like with the Nine of Swords as the first card out. So there's a spiritual insomnia. There is masculine energy here. We see the Mars symbol on the card. And so there is masking. I don't know if there's like a Mars and Gemini energy here or something, but there's somebody here being haunted by a decision that they made with their ego out of fear or illusion. And so this does directly relate to that Chiron Aries Sun Cancer square, where somebody here is facing their own actions, and they actually are afraid of facing their own actions because I think they've really suppressed this truth for quite some time. And I think this also does link to Mars currently transiting in Virgo, where there's like this analysis paralysis, analyzing what was done wrong, obsessively analyzing and destructively looping in this analysis paralysis. There is psychic guilt. There is emotional pain being triggered by all of these soul memories. And there is a deep rehashing of the old wounds, especially with Mercury in retrograde. There's the replaying of the what if, what if, what if, what if. And then we go right to the Ten of Pentacles. And so like, this is the ultimate foundation. But what I feel today is this represents a material-based foundation. I feel there's a masculine here, could have prominent Virgo. It is connected to Mercury, which is connected to the retrograde, the Mercury retrograde. Somebody here built a foundation on their ego goals, on a group expectation or a family expectation, and societal programming. And it feels like the Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is kind of threatening to strip away the illusion. There's a crack in this foundation. I know it doesn't look like there's a crack in this foundation, but I feel a crack in this foundation that was at one point in time probably very secure. But there's also fear here, and there's an unboxing, right? And so I do feel there's fear about, what if I lose everything? What if it was never truly mine anyway, though, right? And so there's an identity here wrapped in materialism, status, old belief patterns, and it's being challenged right now. And with Jupiter in Cancer too, real, true wealth is emotional fulfillment, is the Ten of Cups and divine alignment, right? And that will always eventually lead to the Ten of Coins. And so we got Capricorn energy here coming through with the Four of Pentacles, and I always feel this energy of Pandora's box being opened. And so this often is a card connected to clinging to control. I do feel fear of loss. There is a toxic attachment here to a foundation that feels safe, but in the context of Pandora's box, there's truth revelation here. And this is exactly what Pluto is doing. It's opening the box, opening what's been hidden. And it's exposing the emotional cost of emotional repression, right? Because there's a withholding of emotions here for money. And so somebody here has really been operating out of survival mode energy and masquerading that as stability. Because if we were to subtract 4 from 10, what do we get? We get a 6 of Pentacles. And so there is something here that needs to be balanced out. And I do feel there is some type of control issues over money. And there's a need to emotionally surrender. I feel like head, Pentacles, and I feel this lack of emotional surrender. And somebody is really trying to protect something that just feels like a cage. It feels like a cage with that Capricorn archetype energy. And so the middle row is very telling, especially with the 8 of Cups in the center of the reading. And so this is a karmic turning point, right? We do have the Wheel of Fortune, and we do see Jupiter on the card, which is connected to Jupiter's current current energy being in Cancer, where it is exalted. This is also a divine timing card, where kind of the divine intervenes, fate intervenes, and like fate, karma, and truth. I just feel like a collision. It feels like a collision energy. And so what's meant to shift is going to shift, whether you're ready or not. It's happening. And so in connection to the twin flame journey, this is saying there's a new timeline that is being activated, and these karmic contracts, they are expiring. They have expired, and it's long overdue to move on. And so there does need to be a level of expansion of emotional maturity before we can ground in that divine union. And there is past karma surfacing to be dissolved and then to be rewritten. And the central card of the entire reading is the Eight of Cups. And so this is pretty interesting, because this is walking away, right? It's the walking away from the confusion. It's going for the wish fulfillment. We see the connection to Saturn and Pisces, and we do have Saturn retrograde in Aries, and it is going to be dipping back into Pisces. And because this is the heart of the reading, this is very significant. And so there is a karmic test reappearing, because there's been a karmic lesson here not fully learned. And so Saturn restricts us. There is this need to let go of an illusion, because Pisces sometimes can be connected to illusions. It's connected to Neptune, which is illusions. And I can't even talk. There's an attachment here, I feel, where somebody has been emotionally depleted at the soul level, and they've been spiritually bypassing. So when Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces, somebody's going to have to return to this karmic lesson that has been avoided up until now. And the soul already knows it has to walk away, even if that ego wants to hold on to that grip, right? Because we are at that choice point. You can release or recommit, but it does have to be from a place of truth. With the Four of Swords, it has to be from a place of truth. And so there is this energy of somebody's been sleeping on this truth. Somebody has repressed the heartbreak and the pain after walking away. They have bypassed the grieving, the processing of a connection, and there needs to be emotional recovery. There is like post heartbreak here, and the Four of Swords was prominent, I believe, in my impromptu reading too, the twin flame light message reading that I did. And so this definitely aligns with that reading. And so there's also a message here of like somebody has refused to do the healing work, and now it's kind of like catching up with them. And so the heart wound is demanding to be felt. And this is the death of the old self, because the Four of Swords is death in the minor arcana. And so the death of the old self, the old cycle, has to happen first before the soul rebirth. And so there is a need to kind of take a step back and to step away from a false community or a false social group in order to get to this inner truth, right? To create that balance. And with the bottom row starting off with the King of Cups, there is, I want to say Cancer energy, just because of the sun in Cancer. There is a divine masculine being asked to mature emotionally. And there could be a misalignment here, because oftentimes the King of Cups will repress their emotions, and there could be fear of vulnerability here. There could also be, I want to say, passive manipulation, right? And so when we withhold love or withhold emotional truth, that is a passive form of manipulation. And so it does feel like there is a divine masculine here facing his truth in solitude, especially in light of that sun in Cancer square Chiron. There is a re-identification through this emotional truth, and there is a deep masculine wound around showing feelings. And I do think this stems from some type of fear of rejection. And so there is a divine masculine being asked to admit what he's always felt, connected to, I think, a choice point, right? Because we have the Two of Wands. So this choice point is definitely connected to that fork in the road, and the Lover's archetype a little bit. And so we do see more Mars energy, very strongly prominent masculine energy coming through with this reading today. And so this is asking for action, right? But there's like waiting to act. And so there's a vision of the future. I think there's fear of stepping into it. And there's a holding on of maybe even a vision of what you think union should be. But action is required right now. There's a need to take action. There's a need to take those next steps. And I feel this crossroads moment is really highlighting a wounded masculine who has avoided making a move or has avoided taking those next steps. And due to hesitation of maybe fearing losing something financially that they've built, or even just losing control. And then the last card out is the almighty Palace of Swords. So this is a bonus card. It's unique to the Tarot of Dreams deck. And I do love using this deck because of all of the astrological cues and symbols, because it allows me to go really deep into the twin flame energy and the astrology. But this does symbolize like the whole truth and nothing but the truth. There's mental clarity. There's total exposure. There's total energetic truth too. And revelation. This is like the moment where the veil drops. The mask has to fall and the true thoughts, feelings, it all has to kind of be exposed. And there's also what I want to say is this higher 5D awareness, this energetic knowing that can no longer be denied in the 3D reality. And so there's going to be sudden insights. There's going to be, I want to say, truth bombs and timeline clarity, because the soul sees everything, right? And so, and the heart wants to see that truth. And so only truth is going to survive in this next cycle. Only divine union and divine love is going to survive in this next cycle. So we will talk about the bottom of the deck, because I always do feel the bottom of the deck is significantly important, because it kind of shows us what's hidden below the surface. And so there is a divine masculine release energy here and soul purge today. So 4 of Cups. This is, I feel, a masculine that has been very discontent, has been avoiding facing the very thing that he has prayed for. And he's been numbing, emotionally numbing due to third party, allowing third party or like alcohol. Numbing through alcohol is also a possibility. And the alcohol, the numbing has led to illusions, fantasy, confusion. And I do feel like a big delay tactic, right? Because he's at that point of walking away from the illusions and the confusion, and maybe even a very karmic feminine energy, because we do see like Empress energy or Venus energy and in Scorpio. And so Venus is at home in Taurus and Libra, and in Scorpio it's in the fall. So there's a very dark feminine energy here, and we do have Lilith in Scorpio. So there could be a dark feminine archetype being activated. We could be talking about a masculine with a moon in Cancer, but I feel Cancer energy very loud. And so I do feel somebody has played into illusion, confusion, fantasy, addictions of some sort. And then there is this burnout, I want to say, from holding on to this hidden desire, this hidden burden, and maybe even carrying something that isn't even his to carry. And then there's this defensive energy, right? And so the 10 to the 7, like anger is going to push movement forward. Once again, Saturn energy. We could have a masculine dealing with somebody that has prominent Sagittarius as well. And then we see Mars and Leo, heart expansion. So there is a very defensive energy here. Like somebody's been protecting their heart due to this past pain. But there's like a heart wall, I feel, of masculine shame and guilt here. And there is like this final collapse of this illusion or this burden. And this release is going to be necessary to be able to move forward, right? Otherwise, we're just going to continue to suffer in these endless karmic loops. So there is a divine choice. There is like this reckoning energy, and there's truth, right? And there's always going to be the option for union, but we do that through alignment and not through attachment. So let's talk about the final closing messages, because we got recovery and psychic abilities. So let's talk about recovery first. It says you have experienced upheaval in your life and a period of rest is needed. So this to me is just like a tower moment. This really confirms the entire spread. Boom, tower moment, a spiritual tower, an emotional tower, an energetic tower, a physical tower. And so deep triggers, I feel this deep energy of like soul collapse, like ego collapse, where everything false has just collapsed and it can't remain any further, right? So I feel divine masculine collective is experiencing a breaking point. I'm pretty sure the breaking point was the first card out in that late night message that I did the other night. It's like this, it feels like this emotional pressure cooker. And it feels like it can no longer be contained. And so divine feminine, you might be feeling this, like the energetic debris of this upheaval. And you have to prioritize your own energetic boundaries right now, because you have to stay grounded as the masculine restores and rebuilds from this tower. And so this is a tower, I think, for the sake of recovery, not destruction, because can't stay in these false foundations. So everything basically is being stripped away this weekend so that truth can be revealed, right? So we can heal the wound that's been distorted in these karmic cycles. And so there's going to be an emotional breakdown, but it's going to lead to a breakthrough. There's going to be this recovery, and it's recovery of the true self, but walking through the pain. And I also feel like the soul really is demanding rest this weekend, quiet, introspection, and healing. So unplug, disconnect, meditate, allow your nervous system to reset if need be, because there's a lot going on below the surface. And this is to activate psychic abilities. We all have psychic abilities. What I feel very strongly is a pressure of a third eye activation, the awakening of spiritual gifts, and the trusting in the intuition to guide you forward. So when we break down, we break open. So this third eye expansion happening is basically a direct result of the pain. And then we go through the purification, we go through the karmic clearing, and then we become that intuitive channel. And we have to refine, we have to recalibrate through this initiation. So the Twin Flame Collective is going through a spiritual upgrade, but only after walking away from the karmic cycles. With the Eight of Cups, there could be a receiving of a message from your counterpart telepathically or through dreams. I know my counterpart has been coming through very loudly in dreams lately. Or this just is a message too of like learning to trust your intuitive knowing and stop seeking that external validation, because we do this psychic awakening through the shadow integration. And I know it can be so tempting to avoid the shadow work, but we have to heal these trauma blocks, because the trauma blocks do shut down our intuitive abilities. Addictions will shut down our intuitive abilities. And so we have to expand the emotional and the intuitive energetic body. And so I do feel working with amethyst would probably behoove the collective this weekend, or lapis lazuli, a labradorite. I love labradorite. And create that space for those messages to come through, right? Do the dream work, do the divination work, and trust the messages that you're receiving. And we'll close it off with the bottom of the deck, because imparting wisdom. So quiet the mind, listen to your ancestors. You are now becoming a teacher of the teacher. And so it does feel like a full circle moment for the collective. After the storm does come the rainbow. So after we go through the collapse and we face the truth, then we rise as the embodied guide or the embodied teacher. And so when we stand in our truth, even when we're misunderstood, then we show others what it means to step into wisdom, to step into integrity, and to step into the path of higher service. So divine feminine, share your truth. You are the lighthouse for others walking through the dark on the journey. Okay, divine masculine, you're probably receiving messages from your guides and your ancestors. It's really time to listen. It's really time to silence the ego so you can listen. Because this is a journey not just for union. And I say it all the time. This is a journey about sacred leadership and lineage healing. We have to heal the patterns from our lineage. And so with Saturn retrograde, there is ancestral karmic patterns resurfacing to be cleared. The Chiron Pluto energy is leading to transformation, and we're healing, which leads us into the path of a spiritual teacher. And the Cancerian energy is the ancestral connection, right? The Cancerian energy holds the divine mother codes. So pay attention to the downloads. Pay attention to the repeated signs that you've been receiving. I know license plates have been loud, like with 111, 99, 77, 66. So watch the repeated number patterns and ask the universe, what do you want me to know? Like, what do you want me to know with these patterns? Because we're not just here to awaken. We are here to step into leadership. And that's part of like the soul rebirth. So I don't feel this is just a tower moment. It's bigger than a tower moment. There's a lot of sacred alchemy in these energies and healing the wounds as the old kind of crumbles and dies away, so this divine blueprint can get grounded in and we can finally rise. So that's what I have for the weekend energies. Let me know down below how you're feeling, if this is resonating. Also, I would like to quickly mention, if you would like to go further with me with a personal reading, do check out the webpage link below. I offer several different reading styles, and I do offer twin flame coaching, astrology coaching. Basically, I'm pretty easygoing. Like if you want to book in a 15-minute clearing call and talk about the different sessions or the coaching that might benefit you, that might work for you, then book in the call. There's a link down below in the description box. But I do wish you luck this weekend in these very tense, heavy energies, and I do look forward to seeing you all again next time.